Look at that damage. She's adding 14k on top of everything. And the damage bonuses are so crazy. It is so good. I have a very special video today because we're going to be going over Robin in early access. Now, I know Robin, the character that everyone has been very excited about for a very long time. She is a Harmony character, which means that she has big shoes to fill. She's competing directly with Ruan-Mei. She's competing directly with Sparkle, Bronya, all the other Harmony characters that want that spot. So we're gonna go over everything that she does, and man, does she do a lot. These are my Robin first impressions, and today you can expect us to be going over everything that Robin does, where she fits versus other Harmony characters, and I'll be giving you guys a bit of a showcase and showing you her build. With all that being said, this is on the creator experience server and not the live game, so some things may be subject to change. Thanks to Holyverse for letting me do this, and let's get started. Right off the bat, you can tell Robin is a very lively character. Her design is like super, I don't want to call it extra because I don't think they're doing too much, but there's a lot of things going on with this design, and she is really, really pretty in game, and her idols are really good too. So you might be wondering, what does Robin actually do? Well, Robin is a character that is focused on dual DPS compositions. If you look at Ruan-Mei, for example, her biggest thing is that she buffs dual DPS comps. She's a generally good support just across the board because of how much damage bonus she gives. But she gives allies a bunch of damage bonus, and like that's her main thing, in addition to some other buffs. Robin also does a similar thing with her skill. So when Robin's skill is active, which lasts for 3 turns and goes down at the start of every one of her turns, she gives 50% damage bonus at talent level 10, which ultimately is a massive damage bonus. For reference, that is going to be more than another damage orb on top of what you're already running. And then she has a trace that also makes it so she gains an additional 5 energy whenever she uses her skill. This basically makes her skill a 35 energy gain instead of a 30. Basic attack just does some damage, nothing crazy. And then her talent is another blanket buff to your team. It's going to increase all of your allies' crit damage and to make it so that Robin gets energy back to herself whenever your allies attack. So with that in mind, with the fact that she gains a bunch more energy due to how her kit works, you can basically assume that her ultimate is going to have a massive energy cost. And that is the truth. She has a 160 energy cost, which is absolutely massive. It takes so long to fill her energy gauge, but the reason it takes so long is because her ultimate is just really, really good. They have to balance it somehow. So essentially, when you use her ultimate, she's like Bronya, right? You know, Bronya moves a character forward by 100%, so guarantees that they take the next action. Robin does that too, but for your whole team. So essentially, if you use all 3 of your characters' attacks, and then you use Robin's ultimate, they get to go again immediately. That in itself is such a massive damage gain, assuming that you have proper skill point economy, that if this ult was any cheaper, it would be way too broken. And even then, it's debatably already very, very strong. So she enters Concerto state. Basically what this does is it kind of like takes her out of battle. She's still basically on the field, but she's completely immune to crowd control, which means that she's not going to get like stunned or anything, which is really nice. And she increases all of your allies' attack by a portion of her own attack. This basically means that you want to build her as an attack-based buffer. In my case, I have 4,300 attack, and this is with a 4-star light cone. This is going to be the event light cone that you guys will be able to get, and this is probably going to be her best option for free-to-play players, so definitely don't want to miss this if you're pulling Robin. So massive attack buffs on top of her crit buffs, on top of her damage bonus. So overall, just like AoE Team Bronya, basically. Robin also dishes out some damage of her own whenever she's in Concerto and your teammates attack, and it has fixed crit rate and damage, so you don't have to build her for damage, you just have her normal attack stat. And lastly, she has another trace that basically makes it so that follow-up attacks get even more crit damage to them. So all in all, she's just a very massive buffer for your entire team. With the way her kit works and how she gains more energy on ally actions, characters that use follow-up attacks, also, you know, because of this trace, end up being some of her best pairings, and so she ends up being IPC Gremlin. She's going to be played with the follow-up IPC team, and that's going to be her best spot. However, that doesn't mean that that's the only team she can be played in, it just means it's her best one. Because her buffs are so strong, any sort of characters that can run a dual DPS comp can be useful with her. For example, if you want to play this Blade Jingliu comp with Lolcha as your healer with multiplication and very fast, so he's basically always generating skill points, this team can actually dish out a ton of damage. I know that Robin is an attack buffer, but she's also a damage bonus buffer and a crit damage buffer, which means that Blade does benefit from most of her kit. Obviously, Jingliu's going to benefit from like all of her kit, and this is just one example. As we get more characters that can be useful in dual DPS comps, she'll become even stronger, similar to Ruan-Mei. And that doesn't even just limit her to dual DPS comps, because in general, she's going to be a very strong character for even single DPS comps. For example, if you wanted to play Danheng and Baiba Lune, even though this isn't going to be definitively like his best composition ever, she's much like Ruan-Mei in that she just slots into like most single DPS comps if you want to, and then she can be SP positive, not by a ton because she's not very fast, but just as an example, like if you wanted to play her as your second Harmony for a hyper carry team, she can be okay there too. She just won't be as insane as double DPS comps. Now, as another example, if you want to play our general in Topaz, that's another option. And then lastly, you can also play her in Daunt teams. Now, she does give a ton of crit buffs, and so a lot of people are going to be like, no, you can't play her in Daunt teams. But the most important thing to remember is that not only is she giving damage bonus and attack percent, but she's also giving you an instant action forward, which if you bring Black Swan and Kafka, that's not only more Arcana stacks, but it's also another Kafka dot proc. And if you use her ultimate even just 2 times, the amount of damage you can gain from that is really absurd. So overall, she's a good general use support. I would say if you don't have Ruan Mei, Robin is a really good pickup. I would say if you do have Ruan Mei, she is skippable, even though she is going to be a timeless and very valuable character. An action forward is going to be really crazy. Now let me show you how she plays. Before we go in, just so you know, I have double attack setup, so 12% attack, 12% attack, and Sprightly Vomok. Now this is just for the energy regen. You could technically play Penacony as well, and that's also fine. Either one is cool. I just want to get as much regen as possible, and we're using her free-to-play 4-star light cone. So this is going to be one of her best teams, and probably even going into the future until we get more follow-up characters, is going to be one of her best. Now, this effect that Robin has, her technique, is going to give her extra 5 energy every single wave. Since we're not in Pure Fiction, we don't actually need this. It is useful. I don't want to give you the impression that it's not useful, but I personally would rather have Dr. Ratio here for the extra debuff. Not that that matters, because we just missed the debuff anyways. Okay, so basically, let's start off with Robin's skill. This is going to give us the 50% damage bonus, and look at that animation, too. She's so pretty. It's such a pretty animation. All right, we're just going to kind of go through and take our turns as we would normally. You can let the follow up on Ratio. Yes, we can. All right, so Robin does already have her ultimate. So I'm going to actually basic attack here, and then I'm going to go through Topaz and Ratio's turns, and then I'm going to use her ultimate to bring them back up immediately. That's going to be the plan. So I'm going to save Dr. Ratio's procs here. I'm going to go ahead and hit this guy, Numby them. We're going to skill with Ratio, and then we're going to immediately Robin ult. Ratio gets a follow-up. Big damage. And here we go. This is it. This is it. It's beautiful. The song is so pretty and fun and cheery. It's so nice. I just want to jam. I don't even want to play the game anymore, you know? I kind of just want to hang out. It's so catchy. It's so catchy. Oh my god, it's good. All right, this will trigger Dr. Ratio, and we'll get all of the buffs from Robin while we're in here. Oh, also, one thing I want to go ahead and showcase real quick before we go in. Look at that. she's out here performing. Imagine everyone on the team is just dying, and she's just like, nothing's gonna interrupt my show. This is so fun. I love Robin. So one thing to notice is that if you look at the list here, down at the bottom, actually, let me move my camera so you guys can see this better. So over to the left of my camera, you see this 112 thing. This is actually her song ending. So it has a base 90 speed that's unaffected by other things. What that means is your characters are probably going to get about 2 attacks between the beginning and the end of the song, which means that you're getting a pretty solid uptime. The faster your characters are, the better this ult is going to be. Aside from Robin, because her speed doesn't affect us at all. The follow-up attack. And no crits. And as you can see, Robin's also dishing out her own damage here. She does 12k on her own. Another 12k on top. So it does add up to be a fair bit of damage. Robin can still take damage, as you can see, but she cannot be CC'd. She has the effect res from Aventuring, but she also can't be CC'd while she's singing, because the power of music trumps everything, I guess. Now, if you ever get sick of the song, which I know, of course, we're never gonna get sick of the song. If you turn off music, it just goes away. So if you like listening to in-game music and you don't like Robin's song, unfortunately, that is, I guess a downside if you don't like the song. But you can just mute it with music. So it's nothing crazy. And as you can see, she's still generating energy as this is going. So what's actually really interesting about this is that because she's generating energy while this is happening, you can actually have full uptime on her if you have the right team setups. So if I have Dr. Ratio, Aventuring, and Topaz hitting enough follow-up attacks to regen energy for her, and she's also taking damage, she can have her ult up right away. So we can do this to make sure that we kill before 28. All of our allies will come forward, which is like not the perfect solution because obviously like they were right about to attack. It also picks up where the song left off, I guess, which is kind of cool. And as you can see, the song does carry over between waves, which is super cool. All right, and now Robin's song is over and her buff is over, so we're gonna use her skill. Now, one thing about Robin and her skill is that her skill is generating 35 energy. A lot of people might be wondering about meshing cogs and other light cone options, and there are a lot of great light cone options for Robin outside of just the 4-star one that we're getting from this event. Robin is going to be very slow. You want to build her with her attack to maximize her buff. Realistically, you can build her to be SP positive and build her fast. That's an option that you have, and you can build her with cogs, but that'll lessen the amount of attack buff that you get. She's not limited like Tingyun, where Tingyun has a max amount of attack. She just gives you a bunch of attack. So because of that, it ends up being better usually to build her with an attack based light cone like the event one that we have. And then if you have the skill points to do so, you want to use her skill just so that way you can get more uptime on her ultimate. But if you're ever unsure, you can always just look at the energy bank to check how much you need and then decide if you want a basic attack or skill. Her energy is a little weird. It's not going to be super consistent. So it's something to think about. Basic attack, this guy. Doctor ratio. Robin's still gaining energy because of her passive. Keep doing follow-up attack. She just keeps getting more and more energy. So here, because I don't need the energy, I don't need to skill. So I can just basic attack here. And I'm going to actually save her ultimate until right before the end of the cycle to give us some more attacks on ratio and topaz. We didn't crit, unlucky. And now we're going to activate her song a third time. A banger, a certified banger. And she's doing a lot more damage. 16k per hit right now. Do this with Dr. Ratio. He's going to hit a follow-up attack. Nubby's gonna attack. Dr. Ratio's gonna get another follow-up after this. It's just so many attacks in a row. She's still gaining energy. She's almost halfway up again. And though we didn't clear in that cycle, we dished out so much more damage before it ended because we got the extra attacks. So it's just about timing your Robin ult to be after your DPS of attack, so that way they can get the most time possible. So that clear was 3 cycles, but we could absolutely do better, depending on how many times we're willing to reset and how many times we're willing to test our debuffs. Now, other light cones you can use for her, obviously, there's a lot of Harmony light cones, and her best in slot is going to be your signature if you can get it, but you absolutely don't need it because, like I said, we have this free-to-play light cone that's going to give her a ton of attack, make her attack buff really, really big, and then get damage bonus as well. So it's a really solid one for her overall because she also does a little bit of damage, but her signature is going to basically increase her energy regen, which helps her get uptime on her ultimate, and it also gives her a ton of attack. It has high base attack because it's a 5-star, and it gives damage bonus, so it is going to be significantly better for you. You absolutely don't need it, though. There are so many different Harmony light cones you can use. Like, you can even use But the Battle Isn't Over for the energy regen and for the extra skill point when you use your ultimate twice. And it's basically the same thing as Past and Future with the damage bonus. If you're playing a physical character, you can play Planetary Rendezvous. That's going to be fine. And Carve the Moon, Weave the Clouds is always going to be just a decent overall choice if you have it. I will say, if you're not planning on using your skill every turn, you can use Memories of the Past. The attack is going to be a little bit lower. For example, I have 4,300 attack right now. If I go over and use Memories of the Past, it ends up being 3,700 attack. So it is a big drop off in comparison, which will affect the overall attack gains that your teammates get. And if we go from the free to play event light cone all the way to cogs, which is what I was talking about before, it goes down to 3,400. So that's almost 1k attack loss just going from the event light cone to cogs. And considering that her skill gets an extra 5 energy, cogs is making her basic attack 28. Her trace is making the skill 35. So the difference in using her skill, I would say, is worth it in teams where you can afford to use the SP. If you can't, then cogs and Memories of the Past are acceptable. I wouldn't recommend it super highly, but it is a possibility for you. All right, so let me show you this dot team real quick, because this is the next thing I want to showcase. Obviously, you can slot in like most follow-up characters and most dual DPS characters. You can even play like Clara and stuff with her, but I want to show you guys sort of what it looks like to play dots. So I'm gonna go and open with her skill, Kafka skill, Hue skill, just so that way we can get the healing rolling when we need it. Everyone's about to attack, so I think it's a pretty good idea. We could just immediately do this, to be honest. Since we did get our ultimate really fast, we can just instantly drag everyone up, completely interrupt the flow of the enemies, which is super nice. And as you can tell, like, even though we're not getting like a ton from crit, well, I mean, Kafka's still critting sometimes, but it's not super relevant. The crit buffs from her don't matter a ton, but the attack bonus and the damage bonus we're getting are huge. And dude, those hits are really big. My dot teams are usually pretty underinvested. My Black Swan's definitely not optimal for damage, and we're still hitting pretty big, so. Get an ult here. Yeah, I mean, it really, really adds up. Holy. Do this. We can basic attack, get another follow-up attack within that window. Now it's Robin's turn. We can use her skill to try to get energy, but we actually don't, like, I don't feel like we need it right now. So we're going to basic attack, finish off this wave. Now we're on the next cycle. So this is what I wanted to do. Go ahead and skill. Proc some dots. We can basic attack with Hue. I keep calling, god damn it, the Poke Brain Rot, man. We can do this. We can get all of their ults up right now. And realistically, I should have hit Robin's before Kafka, but again, I have various different forms of Brain Rot. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Dude, it just ends up being so good. Since Kafka's going up again, I'm gonna go ahead and just let Japard attack here. What a bop. We'll go ahead and do this just to get the healing rolling. Braxophone will get to go, proc another Kafka follow-up attack. Now we can do this actually right now. And dude, that damage bonus and attack is just so massive, man. It's just so big. Okay, so now Robin's up. Now we have a choice to make. So we're at 93 out of 160 energy. Technically speaking, we would want to skill twice to guarantee that we get our ult in 2 turns. But we're actually going to have some enemies attacking us here pretty soon, and our skill points are low. So I'm going to go ahead and use the basic attack, and then we'll skill next turn when she needs to re-up her buff again. We also have Ho-Ho going here soon. And Ho-Ho is super valuable with Robin because 20% of 160 is really massive. Yeah, these bonuses are just so good. And plus, when Robin's adding on damage on top of that, it really ends up being huge. All right, so Japard is down. This guy's super weak. As long as he doesn't attack Robin again, we're good. There we go. Robin helps with the attack. Follow up from Kafka. Robin we can skill on, and then we kill with Kafka here. So there we go. Honestly, it wasn't the most insane showcase, but it cleared in about as much time as the follow-up team. That can change based on your luck, and it can also just change based off of like the enemy. Yeah, no, it's basically just luck. Like if your debuffs are hitting, what enemies are being hit with debuffs, and then like what enemies target which characters can all affect these kinds of things. But as you can see, the dot characters end up being really good with Robin too. Now, can you still use them with Ruan Mei? Absolutely, because both these characters are very valuable for both these types of teams. Any sort of double DPS team, both Robin and Ruan Mei end up being really good in. Robin just also ends up being good specifically for follow-up teams because she has the extra crit damage for follow-up characters and because she gains energy like on actions, so that she really shines in follow-up, but she's not only useful in follow-up. And I just really want to drive that point home that she's actually a very good character in general, and she has a free-to-play friendly light cone if you play during this patch, because you're going to be able to get this for free, which is super awesome. So lastly, let's talk about her pull value a little bit. Looking at Eidolons, her E1 is pretty solid. It's going to give all of your allies res pen by 24%, which, funny enough, is actually the ultimate of Ruan Mei. So if you get E1 of her, then she also gets the res pen that basically Ruan Mei also has, which ends up making her like really solid. Even the conditions are the same, right? Like you just need to ult. So overall, E1 does end up being really good, but E2 is kind of a trap. Now, the reason is the ally speed increase to 16% is nice and all, but unless you're breaking a specific speed threshold, this doesn't end up being actually that useful overall. The amount of extra attacks you're going to get from this does not outweigh the cost of getting another Eidolon, in my opinion, unless you plan on E6ing her because you're just Mina Aoyama or something, you know? The talent energy regen thing is kind of nice though. It's basically 50% more energy from other characters attacking, which is going to be really nice, but it's not super necessary. Skill and ult for Eidolon 3, and E4 makes her able to cleanse and also gives her effect res for your teammates. Now, the really funny part about this is if you play with Aventurine, you can just get 100% effect res on your team, which I just think is just really silly. Ultimately, I don't think this is super necessary because usually if you're playing like a good healer, this isn't a problem. Or if you're playing Aventurine, odds are most of the time you're not going to be CC'd anyways. So it's not super necessary, but obviously it's a very big improvement. And then E6 is whenever you have Concerto active, it basically just adds to her damage that she does just by making the crit damage insane. It can only trigger 8 times per use, but honestly, that's like, I mean, that's a lot of damage still. Overall though, I don't think you need Eidolons at all. If you're going to go for Eidolons, I think you stop at E1, but I personally wouldn't. In terms of general pull value, I do think Robin is a really solid pickup. I did mention this earlier. I think if you have Ruan Mei, you don't need to pull for Robin. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, oh, this is the best support in the game because Ruan Mei was the best support in the game, which I still kind of disagree with because I think the amount of teams that you have that are double DPS comps that are actually available to the average player are lower than the amount of hyper carry comps that are available to the average player. Many of the characters that are available in dual DPS can be played in solo DPS, but not many characters that are solo DPS can all be played in dual DPS. So because of that, I actually don't think that she's a must pull by any means, but I think that if you're going to qualify her as a must pull, she's a must pull in the same value as Ruan Mei. It's just that she also has the action forward, which does add a lot of damage overall. And because of that, it does make her a very timeless support. She's always going to be very valuable, especially because her buffs are so general. The only way that Robin becomes not valuable in the game is if there's some kind of penalty for playing dual DPS, or if she just gets straight up power crept. Some people might argue that Robin is just straight up Ruan Mei power creep. I would disagree with that just because Ruan Mei does provide some things that Robin does not, and Robin does end up being like way more optimal for follow-up setups, whereas Ruan Mei is arguably more optimal for dot setups. So there's a couple different use cases for these characters, but they do end up being really solid overall. I really like Robin. I think that in general, she's going to be a good pickup for most accounts, but you definitely don't need her if you already have Ruan Mei. If you missed Ruan Mei and you want a dual DPS buffer, or if you want a dot buffer or something, Robin's a really solid pickup overall. overall. And I would argue like very, very valuable. As long as you don't hate her song, you'll probably want to be playing her a lot of the time. So anyways, guys, I hope this answered some of your questions about Robin. Of course, I'll be doing a full Robin guide when she releases, so that way you guys can have the full scoop on how to build her. But for now, hopefully this gives you a general idea of how she plays and whether or not she's going to be worth it for your account. So I'll catch you guys next time.